welcome everyone, and thank you for attending our webinar, Exploring Health Science Activities for Health Science Foundations in Anatomy and Physiology. My name is Katrina Pilo, and I am the Marketing Manager at GW Publisher. GW provides print and digital resources for career and technical education with a full line of titles across the health science pathways. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping items for today's webinar. You are in listen-only mode, but we definitely want to hear from you today. So please be sure to add comments, questions, and ideas in the chat box. I'll have a lot of time at the end of the session today to answer any questions. And my colleague, Josh, who's also part of the marketing department, will be monitoring the chat throughout this session to address any of them during our Q&A portion of today's presentation. So let's get going. Next year, Florida is adopting these health science courses, and we have submitted these two GW titles. Health Science, Anatomy, and Physiology, we have our Introduction to Anatomy and Physiology, and for Health Science Foundations, we have Introduction to Health Science. These titles already meet national health science standards, and our goal is to meet 100% of Florida state standards for the Health Science, Anatomy, and Physiology course, and for the Health Science Foundations course. So at any time during the webinar, if you would like a sample of either title, please just enter your preference in the chat box and we'll send print or digital to you directly after the webinar. All right, so throughout this presentation, you'll have access to downloadable activities that you can use in the classroom based on the content in our GW textbooks and online courses. So the Health Science Foundations line of titles provides a comprehensive introduction to any healthcare career. These editions' new HOSA event prep features direct students to competitions related to chapter content, while HOSA icons highlight chapter activities and exercises that will help students prepare for HOSA events. For programs that prepare students for HOSA competitive events, GW is proud to sponsor the medical terminology event, and our Introduction to Medical Terminology text is the recommended resource by HOSA. Additionally, Introduction to Health Science and Health Science Concepts and Skills are recommended resources for the Health Career Exploration event. Additional titles recommended for HOSA Human Growth, Medical Law, Nursing Assisting Personal Care, and Nutrition events are also available. So all four of the titles that you see on the screen today also have our new digital platform, GW Ignite. We'll take a few moments at the end of this presentation today to look at GW Ignite. So to get us started, I wanted to start out with our first of three instructional strategies. So Josh is going to share a link in the chat for you to link you directly to this instructional strategy called Snap, Clap, Pop. So this instructional strategy makes a great first day icebreaker, or it's just a fun bell ringer to start your day. So students will have to respond to a few questions related to your course content without talking. These are from the K-20 Center, and it describes that this kind of activity can help establish camaraderie and incorporates some physical movement to help teach and reinforce simple vocabulary or key topics. So you can download this activity with 4 parts to use in your Health Science Foundations course, or for review later in health science coursework using the QR code on the screen or the shortened link, and there's also a link in the chat. So let's just kind of walk through it together. So in this activity, students will start by using facial expressions or movements to show you, the teacher, how they feel about being in class that day. So even on Teams, you can try this now if you'd like. Our cameras are off, so you can kind of get your face moving. You don't have to worry about anybody seeing you. So think about your students doing this class. It's after school. I know you might be tired and you're kind of thinking about, you want to go and be on with your day, right? We've all had long days, but think about your students in the classroom getting ready to communicate with a facial expression. So you'd use your face to communicate how you feel to be listening to our webinar. So once your students gauge on how they're feeling about the day, right, we're going to start our day with this activity. You can ask your students to then indicate, again without talking, if they've had an injury in the past week, where it was and what happened. So imagine your students communicating again without talking about this maybe past injury that they've had or something that's happened to them in this past week. So then moving along with this activity, they're kind of warmed up a little bit and they've learned a little bit more about each other again without talking. We can start practicing content. So now students need to use their bodies to silently mimic some tasks that they think different health science careers might do each day. So with this one, mimic some health professional tasks. This is great to do at the beginning of your class, as students might have no idea what a surgical technologist or a dietary aide might do. And it's really fun to do after. They have had more practice exploring these healthcare professions, and their actions may change as they learn a little bit more and go through the content. So then lastly, students can practice reinforcing knowledge about some health science career pathways. So listed in your activity, we've got 10 healthcare professions listed there. On your smartboard or whiteboard, you can present the key for students to know what to do. So you can clap if it's an example of a therapeutic service career, stomp if it's diagnostic services, snap if it's health informatics, squat if it's support services, and jump if it's biotechnology research and development career. So on the worksheet that you can download, it has the answer key. So it's just a really fun way to get students, kind of test their knowledge a little bit and get them moving in class. So hopefully as we've walked through this activity, you've been able to imagine, this activity in your class right now and how your students would interact with it. And just kind of a really nice way to really start the day and start your class. So now that we're warmed up a little bit, I want to talk about our first title that we'll be looking at today from our Health Science Foundations. And this is for your Health Science Foundations course, excuse me. So the title of GW that has aligned to your Florida state standards is Introduction to Health Science. This delivers up-to-date health science content to high school students and supports instructors in teaching an introduction to the careers in health science. This is written specifically for the high school student exploring healthcare professions, and the structure of the text presents the content in a student-friendly, lessons-based approach. So ahead of the Florida adoption, our editors and authors have been working to ensure that the text content meets your needs for all Florida standards. Some changes that are coming include new end-of-chapter activities and text revisions. These text revisions will cover communication and interpersonal skills, so students will practice reporting relevant information in order of occurrence. Legal and ethical responsibilities. Students will practice explaining the importance of healthcare facility policy and procedures, identifying personal, professional, and organizational ethics and drug schedules. It will also cover wellness and disease concepts. So students will identify defense mechanisms as psychological reactions and understanding positive self-image. Safety and security procedures will be covered. Students will explain and apply the theory of root cause analysis, medical error reduction and prevention, properly identifying patients, and discovering the Joint Commission patient safety goals. This text will also cover responding to emergency situations. So students will describe legal parameters relating to the administration of emergency care, recognizing drug-related agencies and first aid, and explain surgical Blood-borne diseases will be covered in the new Florida standards. Students will recognize emerging diseases and disorders, distinguish between fact and fallacy, identify related community resources and services, and explain legal aspects of HIV, AIDS, and testing. All right, so let's take a look at the table of contents. Content is broken into smaller chunks to make content more manageable for students. In 21 chapters, students are introduced to the field of health science and safety skills and learn and practice career skills across the health science career pathways. Foundational knowledge like communication, healthcare technology, and medical math is emphasized in Unit 3, and then students will understand, explain, and describe the systems, ethical and legal issues that compromise work in healthcare. Unit 5 introduces medical terminology and anatomy and physiology concepts they'll need as a foundation to further coursework for any healthcare profession. Each chapter begins with elements of instructional design, including student-focused learning tools to help students succeed. HOSA event prep activities introduce HOSA events that are related to the chapter. At the beginning of each chapter, you'll also see connect with your reading and map your reading activities that help students organize their notes and think about chapter topics before reading. This is a great proven strategy for strengthening comprehension. So as you can see on the screen, Map Your Reading guides students to create charts to pose their own questions about each lesson before reading, then encourages them to answer their own questions after reading. In other chapters, students are encouraged to create diagrams that connect their own personal traits, career choices, and future technical skills that they would need for various healthcare pathways. There's also a career skills chapter in Unit 2. This is going to guide students through personal traits, education, training, career outlook, and different types of careers in each health science career pathway. So students will compare and contrast job opportunities in related fields and describe the roles and service professionals fulfill in each pathway. The healthcare professions feature connects health science content to real-world experiences with examples of healthcare professionals who work in a wide variety of roles and settings. And then career skills chapters in Unit 2 will also guide students as they practice related technical skills, including some step-by-step procedures, which provide clear instructions for healthcare tasks, and then they can easily be referenced later. And finally, each end of chapter includes review and assessment that helps students study for their tests and get hands-on with recently learned skills. Some features include a chapter summary. This provides an additional review tool for students to reinforce key learning outcomes. Maximize your professional vocabulary and reflect on your reading will help students remember and use key vocabulary. Another feature includes build core skills. This will ask students to apply and use what they have learned in connection with math, reading, speaking, and critical thinking skills. There's also a review and recall. These questions will allow students to demonstrate knowledge, identification, and comprehension. Think and act like a healthcare worker activities help students to practice performing career skills. Go to the source feature will provide practicing reading primary source documents and demonstrating other realistic reading tasks of a healthcare worker. And then you'll also remember those HOSA event prep activities. So these, again, will prepare students to participate in HOSA events. All right, so we just had a wonderful summary of Introduction to Health Science. I wanted to share another instructional strategy with you. So you can see here we've got the QR code for you to download, a link, and then we're also going to share this link in the chat for you to download right away. So Introduction to Health Science incorporates multiple methods for students to learn to take strong notes and to communicate what they've learned. So an additional activity you can ask students to do in any health science class is to use this window notes while reading or during a lecture, or even during a demonstration in the class or the lab. So it's adapted from the strategic teacher. This strategy asks students to break their notes into 4 quadrants to help them organize information. So students will separate facts, their own feelings, questions, and then ideas about what they're learning. So when you can download this activity now to use the Windows Notes as with the first chapter of Introduction to Health Science with your students. So when you download this activity, you'll also have access to Chapter 1 of Introduction to Health Science. You'll also have access to a printable worksheet and the first chapter included with some callouts that'll guide students through creating their own window notes. So after students are done with their notes, you can request that they share their notes with the whole class, or maybe that's a wonderful activity to do for some small group discussions. All right, we'll move on to our second and final title today that we'll be talking about, which is Introduction to Anatomy and Physiology. This textbook covers all body systems using a student-friendly writing style that makes complex subjects easier to understand. In a recent Florida adoption, this textbook was approved by Florida with the highest alignment percentage over all other publishers for the Anatomy and Physiology course. So when GW has this title reviewed for Health Science, Anatomy, and Physiology, we expect to meet all of the Florida standards. So while this text meets the needs of a science A&P course, it is designed specifically to support health science programs with features that detail how a body system changes over the lifespan, related careers for each body system, as well as a discussion of related diseases, disorders, and their diagnoses, treatments, and prevention. I do have on the screen here that you can download that correlation for the Florida standards with that QR code. So let's look at this textbook starting with the table of contents. So written specifically for high school learners, the chapters in this text are divided into lessons, providing content in a manageable format for the student. Chapters are organized by body system and include lessons on the structure and function of the body system, as well as common injuries and disorders found in that system. So each lesson is further divided into subtopics, with questions at the end of each subtopic to help students gauge their understanding of the material. So Chapter 1, Foundations of Human Anatomy and Physiology, includes a section understanding scientific principles related to the body and how to use the scientific method. The instructional design of this text was also developed with student-focused learning tools, including HOSA event prep activities and building your portfolio prompts, which will ask students to add to a professional portfolio throughout the course. The chapter outline provides an overview of the topics discussed, while that before you read feature will help students focus their attention. Each chapter provides opportunities for students to connect anatomy and physiology to real-world examples with clinical case studies that describe relatable clinical scenarios for high school students and what research tells us features, which highlight current developments in medicine related to that body system. So for each body system, memory tips, tables that highlight details of trauma, diseases, and disorders, including how they're diagnosed, treated, and prevented, as well as colorful, anatomically exact drawings, will provide multiple ways for learners to visualize and understand key concepts. End of lesson and end of chapter activities include chances for students to review lesson content and to assess their learning. The end of each chapter provides learning key terms and concept questions for students to demonstrate knowledge, as well as thinking critically questions to develop higher order thinking and problem-solving skills. Beyond comprehension, each chapter provides opportunities for students to practice analyzing and evaluating data, professional communication, and hands-on lab investigations with step-by-step procedures. A few examples from the nervous system chapter that we can see here ask students to examine the transmission speeds for nerve impulses, write a persuasive essay comparing the use of information technology to tasks performed by the human brain, and to work in small groups to build a model of the brain and its protective covers with styrofoam, scalpel, markers, and a shower cap. So finally, we'll have our last instructional strategy. This one is using the 4 corners strategy. And again, we'll share the link for you in the chat, and you've got the QR code there on your screen to scan. So Introduction to Anatomy and Physiology introduces the structure, function, and related diseases, diagnostic procedures, and treatments for those conditions. A major goal is for students to be able to think critically about how they can use this knowledge to make decisions about how to work with patients and to question their preconceptions about diseases and how the body works. So the 4 corners strategy groups students by their level of agreement with a teacher-provided statement related to the content they are learning. This will allow students to discuss their decisions with people of a like mind before defending their position against other groups holding different views and give them a chance to change their mind. So you can download this activity. So you can download this activity. You'll receive the teacher-facing instructions for four corners with the statements to use and locations where students will stop reading to make their selection, as well as a printable PDF for Chapter 9, the respiratory system. So that is student-facing, and it'll have some breakpoints for students to pause and pick their corners. So statements students will consider as they read help them make decisions, help them make some choices about their interest in HOSA competitive events or future careers. These statements also help them to make decisions that require analyzing information in the chapter content from charts and figures and even how conditions may affect patients and their care. This is also a really great activity to get students up and moving around in the classroom. Again, think about the four corners of your classroom and a way for students to be able to move, meet with other fellow like-minded students, and have some conversations, again, related to chapter content. All right. So now that we've covered our two titles, I want to just take a little bit of time to show you our platform, GW Ignite. So all of our health science titles that we've discussed today are offered in a print and digital experience, is also available in GW Ignite. So GW Ignite delivers interactive curriculum in one place for your students to access the online textbook, assignments, study tools, and to get feedback. So it demonstrates mastery of skills and informs instruction with reporting on student performance against course learning outcomes. So each GW Ignite course includes multiple methods for your students to watch and get hands-on with key skills. There's also several auto-graded assignments that are organized by the textbook chapters to save you some time grading. So I'm going to give you a quick tour of GW Ignite for our health science courses, and I'm going to highlight Introduction to Anatomy and Physiology. All right, hopefully you can see this course on my screen. So I'm going to walk through some of the highlights of this title with you today. So with my class, you can see up here, I've kind of got a little roadmap of where I am, and you can see with all of my classes that I teach, I'm in Introduction to Anatomy and Physiology. With that course, I've got my textbook and all of its resources here. I've also got a HOSA competitive events resource library. We'll start here by just taking a quick view of what's available in this HOSA competitive events resource library. So I'm just going to click on it here to look at, and now you can see my walkthroughs opened up a little bit. Not only am I in my course for Introduction to Anatomy and Physiology, I'm in my HOSA competitive events library. So you can see here several different things that you and your students can utilize to prepare for HOSA events. I'm just going to click on one of these so we can see what it looks like and what's available. So with health science events, I'm going to open this up here, and we'll be able to see some prep materials that students can use. One, to get them interested and excited about this event, to understand it, and to prepare them to compete. So you can see here's quite a few different things that are available for students to be able to utilize. You know that these are manually graded activities, and I'll show you why as we view one of these titles, or one of these activities, excuse me. So as this loads, there's going to be a little bit of information on the side for students to be able to review. And then on the other side, there's opportunities for students to write some long answers to enter their responses. So you can see with this one here, for future health professionals for behavioral health, there's a little bit of information. So holistic health is an approach to medicine that treats the whole person. And then after students go through reading these prompts, they'll be able to answer some questions. So how might participating in this event benefit you personally in your future career? So students will be able to give their own individual response to these questions. And then there's also some short answer questions. So they'll all vary a little bit, but you can see here it's really involved for students to be able to get multiple viewpoints and opportunity to practice. So read the following case study, then complete the activity that follows. So this one is about Sarah, who's a 16-year-old who has had increased feelings of sadness and despair over the last 6 months. So after reading about this case study, again, related to this HOSA event activity, students will be able to answer these questions and submit their responses. For any that are multiple choice, you will be able to see the answers for you, and so you'll be able to grade these appropriately. So you can see here there's several questions for students to go through. And then there's also a practice exam. So answer all of the following questions for the practice exam for this event, so behavioral health. So students will be able to go through, answer these questions, and then submit. All right. So I'm just going to exit out of here. I guess I am sure. So with these host event prep activities, again, related to that chapter content and what's going on within the textbook, you can see here, we'll just quickly view this one. We'll move right along to the next activity. You can see they're all structured in a similar way. So when you assign these and push them out to your students, they'll be very quickly familiar with this platform and how to answer these questions. You can see, again, this one's going to be about cultural diversities, disparities, some similar fill-in-the-blank questions, some true-false, this one's a true-false test your knowledge, and then that practice exam. So the exciting thing about Ignite is that this is included with your Ignite program and your platform. So you can see all of the event prep activities for you and your students to be able to use. So I'm going to use this to go back to my course, and we're just going to look quickly at a couple different components of Introduction to Anatomy and Physiology. So when I open this up, it's going to take me back to the last place that I was. And since I was just on this homepage, it kind of gives me a really great overview of everything that's available for this chapter in Ignite. We've got our resources. It's organized by chapter here, all the way down to the bottom. I'm going to start with this resources page to give you an idea of everything that's available for you. So with the resources page, I've got some interactive audio glossary. Let's view that first. We all know how important key terms and vocabulary is in health science professions and being able to master those key terms. This will give us a really great overview of all of the key terms that are here. When you first open it up, it's organized by alphabetically. You can select your lesson and go into that particular location where you are in the chapter, in the table, in the content. You can play the term.
Adenosine triphosphate, ATP.
And it'll let you know the definition of that term. I think this is really great, especially for those words that are hard to pronounce, and students really want to be able to master those. Having that interactive glossary is extremely helpful. Yes, I want to exit out of that. So also in my resources, I have a video clip library. So these are going to be videos. You have a couple different resources here. So additional videos, kind of not specifically tied to chapter content, but we also have videos that are tied specifically to your chapter and videos that'll correlate with what's going on in the chapter. So for this one, I chose one that just has animations. I'll show you one that does have live videos too. So these are animations here. I'm going to view this one so we can take a look and see. It's really helpful if you want them to watch your video outside of class. So I think I paused there for a second while my video was loading. So you can see here we've got a video. I'll pause. You can hear a little bit of it.
Proteins and RNA needed for life. Transcription, which occurs in the cell nucleus, is the process of creating a new RNA molecule from DNA.
There is closed caption for all of our videos. You can also make a big screen. And again, students have access to these outside of class. So they'll be able to look at these outside. If you want to do a little flip classroom moment, have them come in ready to talk about a video or an animation. Let's see if I can pick a better one that's got a live video. Here we go. So you can see that one also had 3 animations specific to that chapter. And there's also this one here. I'm going to open that closed caption, hit play.
Preventing falls is a major priority in healthcare. Healthcare providers identify, manage, and eliminate hazards to patients, especially during patient handling.
So you can see the videos aren't too terribly long, so you'll have time for students to really be able to dive into that content. With these videos just kind of being a really nice, like digestible pieces, you'll be able to have some really great conversations afterwards with the videos and kind of getting your students involved thinking about the video related to the content that they've just covered in the chapter. And I'm going to go back up here to my video clip library, and I'm going to go back one more to resources. There are additional video quizzes, so getting students watching and thinking about what they're looking at. So these video quizzes, again, you can view and assign. Nice thing about these is that they're auto-graded. So let's look at this first one. So you can see here the video guided worksheet. You'll be able to download the worksheet here as a docx file. And then when I hit next, your students will be able to view the video. This one's about 4 minutes long. Again, closed caption, you can make it larger. You can also view the transcript. Everybody will have access to that transcript. And then when I hit next, I'm going to have some questions to answer directly related to that video. So this one you can see as an instructor, I have access to the answer key. So I just hit this answers piece here and it's going to show me right away which answer is the correct one. And you can see it does that for all of the questions here as I go to the next, be able to see the responses. So it's really nice for students to be able to watch and then immediately apply what they were learning and what they were watching and see how it's applicable to the chapter content. So you've got several video quizzes here to be able to use. Also within this resource, there's NCHSC practice exam. And then of course, for our instructors, we have all of our instructor resources. So these instructor resources will give you access to instructor materials. There's course pace and guides. As an instructor, it's really nice to have some rubrics to be able to give your students some structure for how you're going to be looking at their work and grading their work. And then any correlations, right? Especially with Florida, we want to make sure that we're meeting all those Florida standards and you'll be able to access the correlations. We also have some test generator software. And then of course, instructor materials for each chapter. So this one, when I click on the resources, it's going to show me my textbook, answer keys, any digital activities. Remember, we can see the answers right away in Ignite when we're looking at that. Digital activity answer keys. I'm also going to have a lesson plan. I might have a sub one day, and I might need to kind of quickly organize what we're going to be doing in class together. So this lesson plan is really nice to be able to look at. I also love this chapter outline. The chapter outline is going to show me everything that's available for each chapter. Everything from, questions, what videos are available, are there any additional resources that I want to show for my students. So this would be a nice, I think this is a really great way, especially when I'm getting into each chapter, to see what's available. So you can see that it's organized by lesson and some notes that I can take and the different materials or different things that I want to know about each chapter. And then with every chapter, of course, we need to have some visual aids. So we do have PowerPoint presentations for you that are created specific to each chapter. You can open it up right away and show that PowerPoint immediately, but you may want to make some edits to that PowerPoint, in which case you can open the PowerPoint in your PowerPoint app and it'll give you all of that information. You'll be able to add some slides, take some away, add some links, whatever's most beneficial for you as an instructor to be able to access and utilize these resources. So there's a lot here for you to be able to use as far as your instructor resources. And that's all available for you via your Ignite. You can access everything there. So I'm going to exit out of this. And we just looked at everything under this resources tab. So then finally, let's just take a quick peek at the textbook. And then we'll pause to see if there's any questions. So we're just in that resources tab. And I'm going to dive into a chapter here. We'll just go to chapter 2. So very important to be organized by lesson. It's a great way for you to be able to organize your class, get students, really honed in on each lesson. And again, what's nice about these lessons is that there's, checkpoints at the end of each lesson to make sure that students are really understanding the chapter content before you're moving on to the next lesson. So we don't get through the whole chapter before we know maybe some students are struggling with a particular activity or concept within the text itself. So all of our chapters and our lessons are going to start with a pretest. You can see here, again, organized by our lessons and learning objectives. You can see which objectives are covered in this pretest. Let's say I just want to take a peek at it first before I assign it, be able to see what questions are being asked. And I'm sure you noticed that auto-graded little blurb on there. So this will be an auto-graded activity. So for this assessment, it's a pretest. We're going to be looking at these learning objectives for this chapter. So as I go through, again, as an instructor, I can see the answers to my questions, and students will be able to pick which response they want before they submit. I skipped one here. So you can see it kind of goes through each question. I'm going to hit next, and it's going to let me know before me as a student if I would submit maybe I forgot that I didn't answer question 5, so I was still really hung up on it and I didn't know what that was. I can go back and go to that question again and make sure I answer all of them before I submit. And you can see I submitted here, and I can submit everything, exit. So then after our pretest, we can look at our online text. There's also a reading guide. We talked how important the vocabulary practice was. There's e-flashcards, matching activities, and vocabulary games with this title. Then also additional activities, some that are auto-graded and some that are manually graded. Let's look at the text first quickly. See, we've got just a little bit of time here. And I want to show you just how the text is set up. And how nice it is for students to be able to access this online. So you'll see here the page numbers are the same page numbers that are in the text itself. So I'm in lesson 2.1, Molecules of Life. Again, I've got my before you read. We talked about this in that PowerPoint slide deck I shared with you. Some questions that students will want to answer just in this lesson within this chapter. And then our learning outcomes. So we're hoping at the end of this lesson to be able to list the types of functions of carbohydrates, explain the properties of lipids. And then with this chapter, these are my key terms. So you can see I'm just scrolling down. This is a device agnostic textbook. So if I'm looking at it, maybe I'm on a computer, I can scroll that way, or I'm on my phone. Would be super small to read, but you can definitely utilize this and it'll shape up appropriately for students to be able to look on whatever device that they choose. So you can see here, again, always pausing to kind of check understanding of resources within the content. It's a really important component for all of our health science foundations courses and our textbooks to make sure. So we just knew that we had that learning objective for understanding what a carbohydrate, what that means, what it does. And then we're going to check right away to see. So really nice way for you to pause as you're working with your students to ask those questions, some really good discussion starters as well. Easily be able to scroll through. And we talked a lot about the wonderful art and how colorful everything is, really kind of grab students' attention. You want to make that bigger. Maybe you're projecting this on your whiteboard or screen. You want to make sure that you can walk through this. You can make it a little bit bigger. And there's also an image library. If you just wanted to pull up this image and pop it somewhere else, you'll be able to access that via your Ignite course. All right, so I'm going to exit out of here. Just a couple more things that we'll walk through together. I'll pause for any questions or comments. Within the online text, there is also a reading guide. Let's look at this. So just kind of to answer some questions for students to be able to, kind of gauge what they're understanding with the text. And you'll notice a lot of these questions within the reading guide will align not only to those learning objectives, which is really important for the structure of your course and how your students are learning, but also for the questions as they go through each chapter. All right. So that's our reading guide. And again, a vocabulary practice, again, always wonderful for students just to be able to practice and hone those skills. This one is an e-flashcard, so I can flip it and it'll let me know the definition. Let's say I've got that one down, I can just remove it and move on to the next one. I can also change it by definition and shuffle the deck here. If I don't want to do those vocabulary terms, I've already mastered those. I do have some matching activities. This is really nice because it does give you responses immediately. So students can go through and they can see what they've got right and wrong. So this might be a fun assignment. I know a lot of teachers will just let students kind of work on this independently. It's kind of a low stakes activity. And then you as a teacher can kind of walk around the room. And when somebody's got all green responses, they can raise their hand and let you know to come over and kind of, you can let them know that they got all of the responses right. So it's just a really nice way. We want our students to get 100% on everything. So this is a great way for students to keep practicing. So I know I only got one right. I can go back and change my responses to make sure that I master all of these key terms. And then finally, maybe you're working in small groups or you've just got, say you've got 5 minutes left in class. You've already done these wonderful instructional strategies that we've shared with you, and you want to just do a fun vocabulary game. This is kind of a Jeopardy style, so I can put students into groups maybe. I'm going to bet 100 points that I know the answer to this. That was wrong, but can try again with something else. So you can see kind of how this goes, and students can see who's going to get the most points. So there are additional activities, again, to go along with chapter content. I can view these, I can assign these. So you can see kind of the same thing that we've been working on with those learning objectives here. I didn't answer any of those questions. So of course, the wonderful thing about Ignite, which is kind of where I'll end my tour for you with Ignite and everything that we have available for you. There's my image labeling activity. I'll show that because it's just really, it's really cool. We'll have to look at that. Oh, so yeah, you can see some images here, and you can label different things. I just really like the visuals that come from the text that we put into some different activities. So a lot of different ways that they're able to see the types of image. And for all of our different types of learners, maybe they see it in the textbook and they understand it. Maybe they need to do a little activity and then they understand it. So a lot of different ways to be able to learn. So being able to have our reporting, to know where our students are standing in class, how the class is doing as a whole is extremely important as an instructor. So with Ignite, it's very powerful reporting, and you'll be able to see kind of where your students are sitting in the class, and kind of how everybody's moving along independently as a class. So it's a little bit different how I'm going to show you with this because it's kind of a national demo account, and we've done some of the activities ourselves to kind of show you what it looks like. You can kind of open these up here to be able to see where students are working on activities, maybe where we need a little bit more help on things. So let's say I just assigned chapter 4 and we've got our pre-tests here. I can see kind of the class average of where everybody stands, but I want to view it here just to kind of see, you know, where we're going. Maybe everybody's been doing really well in our class, and then suddenly we do a post-test and it's just not where we want it to be. It's really nice to be able to check immediately where everybody's at. And you can see it'll show you all of your students here. And I can see my student that got a 60%. And I'm still waiting for other students to get started on this. So maybe that's why my class average isn't exactly where I want it to be. So then finally with reports, we've got our standards reports here too. I can view this. And again, I'm going to open up my learning objectives for Introduction to Anatomy and Physiology and kind of see here where everybody is. Again, we've got our chapter 4. This one's nice, right? Love to see that green where everybody's at 100%. So I can see the class average for this as well. So whether you're looking, you know, at an individual student or you're looking at your class as a whole, this is a really nice way to be able to see those reports and really drill down into the details, as well as getting some very high level overview of the reporting and the processes. All right, so I'm right where I wanted to end for this time as far as showing you all of these wonderful resources, not only for Introduction to Anatomy and Physiology, but also Introduction to Health Science. I will pause here to see if we have any questions or comments about the resources that we've looked at, the instructional strategies, or Ignite. All right, I just saw a question come through. Thank you for asking about Ignite working with Canvas. I know that's so important for you to be able to integrate your content into your learning management system. And I'm very happy to tell you that Ignite will seamlessly integrate into your Canvas course. And that's something we're very happy to work with you on to be able to make sure that this process of adopting this product and working with Ignite and working with Introduction to Anatomy and Physiology or Introduction to Health Sciences goes as smoothly as possible. So how nice is it that you can still use your learning management system, you can still use your Canvas and be able to utilize all of those resources within Ignite itself. All right, I don't see any other questions. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll follow up with any samples and text requests.